What's up guys, and welcome back to Wall Street Millennial. In this channel, we talk about all things related to stocks and investing. If you haven't been living under a rock, you will know that Bitcoin's meteoric rise was one of the biggest stories of 2020. Cryptocurrency was the best performing asset class of the year, and Bitcoin increased in value by more than 350% and achieved a market cap of almost $700 billion. This has literally created hundreds of billions of dollars of wealth for people who had the foresight to buy in early. But the insane move in Bitcoin price has led to heartbreak for many would-be millionaires who forgot their account passwords or otherwise cannot access the Bitcoin that they mined many years ago. When Bitcoin was first created in 2009, it was little known and most people thought it was just a gimmick. For the first few years, its price stuck below $1. Furthermore, Bitcoin mining was only in its early stages, so it was viable to mine Bitcoin just using a laptop. As it turns out, there are many people that mined a few Bitcoins in the early 2010s and didn't think much of it because it was only worth a few dollars. Over the years, many of them forgot their Bitcoin wallet passwords. Now that their Bitcoin is worth millions, they're pulling their hair out as they just lost a life-changing amount of money. One of the most gut-wrenching cases of this tragedy is a UK man who accidentally threw away a hard drive containing keys to 7,500 Bitcoins in 2013. At Bitcoin's current price, that is worth about $270 million. He is now trying to convince the city to let him excavate the local dump to find his hard drive. James Howells is an IT worker living in Newport, a small city in Wales. He started mining Bitcoin in 2009, the same year as it was released and when it was worth almost nothing. He mined the Bitcoin only using a personal computer. But what exactly is Bitcoin mining and how was he able to mine so many of them? Whenever a Bitcoin is transacted, a miner must verify the transaction to make sure it is legitimate and prevent fraud such as double spending, where they copy the digital token and send the same one to multiple people. To make sure a transaction is legitimate and not fraudulent, the miner must use computationally intensive methods to determine a unique hash code to verify the transaction. The miners are compensated for their efforts by receiving a newly created Bitcoin. You might be thinking, if this guy could mine 7,500 Bitcoins back in 2009, why doesn't he just start his computer back up and mine them again today? The problem is that the more miners there are, the more difficult it is to mine a Bitcoin. Miners are compensated once they verify 1 megabyte worth of transactions, but to verify a transaction, you don't just have to come up with the correct hash number. You have to be the first Bitcoin miner to find it. So Bitcoin miners are competing with each other to be the first one to solve the mathematical formula and verify the transaction before anyone else can. Back in 2009, when James was mining the Bitcoin, there's very little competition in the mining space. With Bitcoin only being worth a few cents, it wasn't worth investing tens of thousands of dollars on Bitcoin mining rigs just to make a few Bitcoins. So it was possible to compete in the mining space just by using a personal computer. These days, with each Bitcoin being worth more than $30,000, there has been significant investment into Bitcoin mining operations. For example, as shown by TechVision, this Bitcoin farm in Iceland invested tens of millions of dollars into specialized computers to build a sprawling Bitcoin operation. The link to the TechVision video is in the description below, and I highly recommend you check it out. With high-power operations like these in existence, it's almost impossible for an individual to compete with just a personal computer, so it'd be almost impossible for James Howell to make back those 7,500 Bitcoins today. After mining those Bitcoins back in 2009, he stored them on a hard drive using what is known as cold storage. In cold storage, you store your Bitcoin keys securely on a hard drive or a USB. The advantage of this method is that the keys are not connected to the internet, so you are not vulnerable to hackers potentially stealing your keys. You have your Bitcoin stored on a physical hard drive, so it is actually similar to having a physical bar of gold. In the case of James Howells, this hard drive is now worth $270 million. In 2013, James was cleaning out his office. According to him, he had two identical hard drives, one of which contained his Bitcoin secret keys. For some reason, he decided that it was time to throw away the other one, so he did. Or so he thought he did. The hard drive which had the Bitcoins on it had about 7,500 Bitcoins. Back in 2013, when he realized his mistake, Bitcoin was worth about $100 each, so the hard drive would have already been worth almost $1 million. However, it wasn't until the 2017 peak that it was worth the fortune that gave him so much attention. At $19,000 a Bitcoin, those Bitcoins were worth $142 million. At today's prices, they are worth about $250 million. As an IT engineer, James Howells knew that if he could get the hard drive from whatever landfill it was in, it could probably be recovered for those Bitcoin private keys. He thinks that the hard drive is probably still in good condition, but as long as the actual disk inside it is intact, it can be taken to data recovery experts and the information on it can be restored. He also knows where the landfill is that would contain the hard drive. After discovering his mistake, he visited the dump to see if it would be possible to find it. When he got there, he realized that the dump was much bigger than he thought. The average size of a landfill is 600 acres, or almost an entire square mile. With the size of a hard drive being something you can hold in your hand, and most likely being buried under multiple feet of trash, it was clear that it would be not possible to find it by searching the whole area. However, he says he believes he knows a way to solve that issue. He has figured out the general area of where the hard drive would be based on something he refers to as a quote grid reference system. Of course, digging even a small portion of a landfill would pose difficult safety and environmental concerns. Because of these issues, James Howells has been unable to obtain permission to carry on with the excavation. A spokeswoman for the Newport City Council, the location of the dump site, told CNN that the city had been, quote, contacted a number of times since 2013 about the possibility of retrieving a piece of the IT hardware said to contain bitcoins. She said that the council had not refused the offer, but unfortunately was not permitted to excavate the site. This is due to the licensing permit to the landfill and the environmental concerns around any potential excavation. According to the city, the cost of safely digging up the site, properly treating the waste, and storing it again could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. There are many potential hazards associated with landfills. Aside from the visual appearance of landfills, many of which are near populated areas, odors coming from rotting organic material in a landfill can become a major issue for neighboring areas. Disrupting landfills that have been sitting in the open for years can lead to groundwater contamination as trash decomposes and chemicals seep into the ground. Additionally, some highly flammable parts of normal garbage and the decomposition that occurs can potentially cause fires. Modern landfills are engineered to prevent these issues, but by disrupting one with an excavation, these concerns would resurface. Even after doing all this, there is no guarantee of even finding the hard drive, or that the hard drive will necessarily be recoverable even if it is found. After almost 10 years of lying in a landfill, it's entirely possible that water damage or extreme temperatures would damage the hard drive enough to make the bitcoins unrecoverable. To try to convince the city to allow the search, Howells has offered 25% of the value of the bitcoins to be given to the city to distribute evenly to local residents. Newport has a population of about 316,000 people, so that would mean about $239 to each person. He has also secured backing from investors who would put up the funding for the mining operation in return for 50% of the bitcoins on the hard drive. That leaves Howells with 25% of the bitcoins that he originally mined and threw away. Due to the recent spike in Bitcoin price, he is trying once again to convince the city to allow him to excavate. He admits that they have already rejected his offer to give the city and its residents 25% of the bitcoins, but complains that they have not even agreed to hear his plan of action. He says he has a way to address the environmental concerns of the project, but the city has not even agreed to meet face-to-face to discuss and has instead just said no every time. This is a truly heartbreaking loss for James. With $270 million, he could have bought this private island, plus something like 70 or 80 Bugatti Chirons. Instead, his 5 seconds of carelessness has him stuck in a 9-to-5 job with the rest of us. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. If you have any thoughts on this story or Bitcoin in general, let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.